Hi. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the fact that in 2024, during the summer, myself and a good friend cycled the full length of Canada. We cycled from St. John's, Newfoundland to Tofino in BC. It took us 75 days. We camped in hammocks most of the time. There was a few days where we didn't, but I would say 80% of the time we were in the hammocks, either in the genuine wild or in a campsite. And we had everything on us. We strapped everything to the bikes. We had no support vehicle. We carried everything on us. And we also raised 10 grand for 4 different mental health charities. Not 10 grand each. That would be crazy. 2.5 grand for each mental health charity. 2 British, 2 Canadian ones. And I want to talk a little bit, not really about what happened exactly in terms of how we did it, where we camped, what the equipment was, what our day-to-day looked like. That might be another video. But I want to talk a little bit more about why I did it, what happened during it, and then what happened afterwards. Because basically, for context, in March 2023, so this was like a year and a couple of months prior to setting off on this venture, I had left the UK in what I would say was a depressed mess. To be honest, I was depressed, I was anxious, I felt like my life was in ruins, even though it didn't seem to be from a genuine outsider's perspective. But for those of you who understand what those things feel like, it doesn't really matter what's going on the outside. It matters what is going on the inside. So I left the UK and I vowed to change my life. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but Canada was the first place on my list to help me with that endeavor. And I'm going to skip an entire year basically of how I ended up in a position where I could cycle across Canada. But let's just say I was on my own when I left the UK as well. But when you take such a step into the unknown, you cannot plan for every detail. And this has been a common theme even now in what fucking month are we in? July 2026. You cannot plan for every detail. You don't really know what's going to happen. You just have to be open and brave enough to say yes to things as they come along. So in January 2024, I was in a situation where the opportunity came up to cycle the length of Canada with another British guy who I'd met through traveling. Insane circumstances, to be honest. But the reason that I wanted to do something like this was because during my travels, I'd seen multiple people, but mainly Russ Cook, hardest geezer, running across Africa. I thought, that's fucking insane. I want to do something like that. I'm probably not going to run the length of Africa or Canada, but I was trying to think of what I could do that would be my own version of that and get from the experience what he got from his. And I just thought it was epic, and I intuitively believed that there was so much wisdom and experience and value that I could get from something like that there was no way that I couldn't do it. It became a necessity, like this unmovable urge and impulse to do something like that. I just didn't know what it was going to be yet. And anyway, fast forward to January, a conversation came up with my flatmate at the time. I don't know really how this conversation came around, but it did. And it ended after 20 minutes with us shaking hands on cycling the length of Canada. fast forward a few more months, we trained, we'd done some prep, and we did what we felt like we could do to prepare properly. Like I said, you can't plan every detail, and we kind of knew that. We came to the realization of that before we set off, that we'd done maybe not as much as we could, but we'd done a lot in preparation, and we still didn't feel. We felt confident and we believed that we could do it, but we didn't feel. I don't know what the word is. We didn't feel completely 100% certain that we could do it. We just believed that we could, because I don't know. I guess until you've done it, you don't fully know that you can do it. So it's always just, you're always preying on beliefs. What else? So I do have some notes because I know what I'm like and I'm going to get distracted. There's a fly on my journal. Yeah, ultimately, I wanted an adventure in its truest definition. I wanted to venture into the unknown. I wanted to do something that I didn't know that I could do, but I believed I could do if I really put my mind and body through it and to it. Okay, sorry, quick break because I thought I was going on tangents and didn't know if it was cohesive enough to be worthwhile carrying on. Turns out it is, I think. So something really weird happened just before I set off, and I was in a relationship, still in a relationship, but I was in it at the time, and we were managing long distance, and that's its own fucking endurance event in of itself. People that are doing long distance, you're all crazy, you're all brave and courageous, and you deserve acknowledgement for that. So I hope you feel seen by me saying that. And I'd gone to visit my girlfriend just before I flew back to St. John's to set off on the bike ride, and I spent about a week with her. And this was easily like the most dangerous, scary, I don't know what other word you could use, uncertain, adventurous. I don't know if I already said adventurous adventure I'd ever been on, or thing I'd undertaken. Like, I'd been to uni, hated that. I'd been to Vietnam, but that was like an organised thing. I'd been up to Churchill in Manitoba in Canada, like extremely rural spot. It takes 2 days to get there on a train. So I'd done some already fairly wild shit at this point, but this was by far the biggest and the scariest. And a couple of days leading up to it, and I've felt depressive symptoms in various forms for a long time in my life, but I'd never felt like I had this genuine weight on me. Like there was times where I felt not even weight on me. There was times where I was like I felt physically paralyzed by the idea of it, just how big of a mountain it felt that I was about to climb. Like, it was just, thinking about it was just fucking terror. I was excited, but it was terrifying. And there's an added element of fear to it because I was in a relationship and it was still fairly early on, and I knew I was going to be away from her for 2.5 months. So there just was a lot of fear, and the fear, it was almost overwhelming. I knew it wasn't going to stop me. I knew I was going to do it. I knew I was going to get there. I knew I was going to get to the start line. But there was a genuine, not so brief period of just being like, fuck. Shit. Like, what's actually going to happen? Like, I believe I can do this, but fuck. Like, I don't know how else to put that into words. Anyway, obviously ignored the feeling, said goodbye, flew to St. John's. My friend had already arrived. He'd put the bikes together. He was waiting for me at a B&B. We were actually meant to set off the next day, but I ended up arriving at 1 a.m. in the morning because the plane couldn't land in St. John's because it's the foggiest place on earth, and Flair Airlines couldn't land. So I had to get a bus, and I was delayed. It ended up pissing it down like I've never seen before the next day as well. So it's probably a good thing. But anyway, I'm going to try and not get too bogged down in the details, but I think some stories slotted in are worthwhile for context. And another kind of important piece of information for me was that I had like developed these weird, what the fuck is that? It's a big beetle. I developed these weird digestive problems, and I'd done my research, and I didn't have IBS. I know that, but I feel like there's something to do with your vagus nerve and it being connected to your nervous system. And if you're in fight or flight all the time, and you just feel fucked all the time, then your stomach's going to go weird. I'm sure multiple people have experienced this. It's like when you're nervous for something and you just shit, and you just have diarrhea for a day, or you just, you have a really weird toilet experience before you do something scary like public speaking, or I don't know, a big basketball game, or I don't know. You can imagine what I'm trying to say. But I developed these issues, and I developed these food sensitivities that I identified as in my mind as like perhaps not the sole cause of it, but they weren't helping me, like lactose, gluten, like a few things. I was trying to eat them and keep them in my diet, but they were fucking me up. Like every time I ate them, they were causing inflammation or bloating, or giving me weird toilet experiences. This was very annoying, and I was very scared of this because I was about to cycle across Canada, and I needed thousands of calories a day to keep me satiated and fueled. Otherwise, my chances of finishing would be diminished, put it that way. And this is important because this is something that rectified throughout this process, and it didn't heal it 100%, but it healed it. Like, if I had to put a percentage on it, it healed me like 80%. And I guess this is a good place to start. And I'm just going to try and list a few things that aren't really in order, because I don't know how to put these things in order. My brain just does not work that way. I'm just going to go through a few things that happened to me and what they did for me during the bike ride. Number one being diet. And we were eating peanut butter and Nutella wraps, or peanut butter and jam wraps, and protein bars as our primary source of nutrition, which is fine to do, I think, for short periods of time. Like if you're doing an Ironman or something, like you need something that's high calorie, nutrient dense. I'm not saying protein bars are nutrient dense, but protein, high carbs, high fats, high calories in general. Like when you are operating at such a high output, food just becomes fuel. And I believe this is what happened to me. This is partially what happened to me. Food just became fuel. Instead of me being like, oh, this is going to fuck me up, this is going to make me feel bloated, this is going to make me sleep weird, I couldn't really afford to care. And, I wasn't downing pints of milk, but I was eating pretty much what I needed to eat just to get enough calories in. And this, for a few days, it felt kind of weird. But then something weird started to happen where I could just eat pretty much what I wanted within reason. Like, when you eat some kind of food that isn't optimal, you don't feel as energized as you would if you ate a Pokeball or something. Like, I still got that, but I didn't get the weird, like, digestive retaliations that I was getting. And this improved throughout. And the times that it dipped off again was when I was anxious, or I'd had like a couple of bad days or whatever. Like my stomach and mind were in direct synchronicity with each other. So I'll probably just shelve that for now, because I'm not going to go into the science of how I think that happened. I just believe that through the power of my mind and my body just needing calories, I got over my mental associations of certain foods being kind of off the table for me, and I was just eating anything for fuel. And I'm going to try and keep this mic at this distance. And I think my body just accepted that it needed the fuel, no matter what format it came in through. So that's helpful, because it was very annoying to have food sensitivities. Like, you don't really want to be the guy that has to have vegan mozzarella on a pizza. You just want to be able to have a pizza. And I know there's bigger problems in the world, but it's just nice to not to be able to relax and kind of eat within reason what you want. Like, I watch what I eat because I care about how I look and how I feel. But to be so fucking irritatingly obsessed with certain foods and putting certain things in your body, it's a not a nice place to be, and it can be depressing and very, I don't want to use the word debilitating because I think that might be dramatic, but it can take the spring out your step for life. It just can. It happened to me, but I think I'm over it for the most part. Another thing, this mic might run out at some point, which could be annoying because I don't want to have to re-record this video, but I've got 2 mics. I'll be fine. Another one is, like I said, you can't plan for every detail. And I knew part of the reason that I wanted to go on an adventure like this is because I didn't have a lot of trust in the world. Just through experiences, just through like my degree that I did, and not getting any fulfillment from it, and feeling like I trusted my gut for certain decisions, and it just led me into a position where I felt fucking shameful. I just didn't feel like I liked myself that much, and I feel like I needed this trust fall into the universe in order to like refine my internal compass, if that makes any kind of sense. And part of, for something to be an adventure, there has to be an unknown element to it. It's not really an adventure otherwise. Like, if you know exactly what's going to happen, there's not really an adventure aspect to it. It's like when you watch a film, you can still get enjoyment from a film if you've seen it, because it's a good film, or you pick up on things that you didn't before. But the first time you watch a film is like always the best, because you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know how it's going to end, and you've got all this anticipation. And that's kind of how I now look at life. And whenever I feel anxious, sorry, I keep burping. And whenever I feel anxious about the unknown, and it's like, well, yes, there's some things that you should know you're going to do. Like, today I'm going to go to the gym. I don't know when, but I know I'm going to go. That's a certainty. I know at some point this evening I'm going to go to bed. I know at some point in this afternoon I'm going to eat something, and at some point I'm going to see my girlfriend. But there's a lot of shit that can happen in between. And if you tried to plan everything, you would drive yourself nuts, like actually nuts, or you'd drive yourself into being depressed, because you'd be anticipating boredom all the time because you'd never have an adventure. So with that, a lot of strange things happened on the bike ride, and very fortuitous things happened where we'd meet certain people at certain times, or we'd need something, and then we'd meet someone that could help us with the exact thing that we needed. And just, solutions didn't always present themselves immediately, but they presented themselves eventually in ways that we couldn't plan. Like, in one circumstance, my bike rear wheel cog, what's it called? I don't know. The thing that is inside your rear wheel that attaches to your gear chassis, that the chain pulls around to actually turn your wheel, that just snapped. So my legs continued turning around, and my bike just stopped moving. Big problemo when you're stuck in the middle of rural Ontario, just outside Lake Superior, with barely any service. And we ended up having to hitchhike to the closest town. And the night before this happened, obviously we didn't know this was going to happen, somebody had reached out in the town that we were trying to get to that day that said, oh, when you're here, I've got a B&B you can stay in, like, rest up, take a couple of days, and don't worry about money, basically. Like, she was giving us a free stay. That time allowed us to rest and recuperate, because we were about halfway through the bike ride at that point. it also gave me an opportunity to fix the bike. There wasn't a bike shop in town, so we had to hitchhike somewhere else. But through the friend of the person that was letting us stay in the B&B, she had someone that was going to the place that had a bike shop, and I managed to fix the bike, get it back. We got fed, rested, and just got to kind of look around and appreciate what we'd just done. Like, we were 30 days in or something at this point, and we knew, especially following this experience, that if problems kept cropping up, then there was always going to be a solution. And this has been one of the most profound things, I guess, I've taken from the entire trip, was that, like I said, you can't plan for every detail, but you don't have to. You should plan a bit just to give you some guardrails, but when things go wrong, and they inevitably will, I use the word wrong in quotation marks, because every time something did go wrong, or there was a problem, or there was something that we would preconceived? I don't know what the word is, that we would have looked at during planning phases as happening, as being a big problem. When these things did happen, they weren't that big of a problem. They just happened, and we were like, oh, this has happened. This is just part of the adventure. And then there was a solution shortly after, and it was fine, and it was actually enjoyable, because I'm not saying we felt invincible, but whenever anything happened that was arguably not ideal, we fixed it quickly, efficiently, with the help of people and the universe or God. I don't know what your religious inclinations are, but I don't know what mine are at this point, but I knew there was something else helping us, that we weren't solely responsible for the things that were happening on that bike ride, is what I will say. And I don't know, I've just realised I'm looking at the wrong thing. The camera's there, but I'm looking at the microphone attachment. I hope that's not weird. I've got sunglasses on, so it probably doesn't even matter. Yeah, we weren't solely responsible for being helped. And we're back. I'm very annoyed. Something irritating happened. There's a button. I'm not going to sit like this. There's a button on this microphone that I've been trying not to press, because if I press it, it stops the video. And I was good and well behaved, and I didn't press the button. But then I ran out of storage, so I essentially waffled for about 15 minutes just into thin air. So that's annoying. I feel like I was on a roll. Anywho, I've been harping on about resilience and how problems crop up and that we solve them immediately. So I had a cup of tea and checked in with myself and said, it's okay to be angry, but we're going to carry on. And if that happens again, it happens again. I've deleted loads of shit so that I now have more storage. I'm not going to press this button. So the only thing that can stop me now would probably be rain or a very large bird of prey or a gardener that might show up. Because someone's mowed this lawn and it wasn't me, and it wasn't my neighbour, because they're dead. So rest in peace. Rest in pieces. Let's carry on. Where was I? I think I harped on about nature, and that's the thing that got cut off. So I'll revisit that because it's fresh in my mind. The exposure to nature was something that we deliberately engineered into the bike ride for many reasons. Probably the main reason was that if we didn't, then we would be financially ruined, because staying in motels in Canada would probably cost us at least $100 a day, 100 times 75, $7,500. And that's not including the times that we were staying in Montreal or places where it would be very difficult to get cheap hotels. I guess it might not have been, actually. Could have stayed in a hostel or something. But anyway, we decided that we wanted to camp for financial reasons, but mainly because we wanted well, it was more of an adventure. It was cooler. It was more. It was more. We could get more out of the experience by camping. We thought, and we did. So we thought correctly, but we just figured that it would be cooler if we camped. And camping's fun, and like we're both outdoorsy people, and we're both active people that like adventure, and we can both count on one hand how many times, or I could at least count on one hand the amount of times that I'd been camping or done like a multi-day camp trip or endurance event that involved me being outdoors. So we said, fuck it, we're going to camp in hammocks, which was not my idea, but I'm so glad we did, because having a hammock, obviously you need trees to utilize said hammock. But there's something about being rocked to sleep in between two trees, above Mother Nature, in the wilderness, ideally with a tarp if it rains. It's been an experience that I haven't been able to match with any mattress I've come across or any tent I've been in. There's just something really freeing about it. And I don't know, it feels like the closest thing to like how our ancestors would sleep in the wild. Like, they probably just slept on the floor or something. And I'm fairly sure I read something about them sleeping in trees, but I don't know if that's monkeys. But I guess tomato, tomato, depending on your inclinations and beliefs. What else was I talking about? Yeah, nature. It was like there was multiple things happening at one time. Like, we were improving ourselves in many dimensions, and we were like racing towards a goal that was meaningful, purposeful, just unfathomable in ways. But the element that wasn't about striving and bettering ourselves was the nature element. Like, it was meant to, like, or it did bring our nervous systems into rest and peace, which after like a really hectic day of cycling, I don't want to say it was hectic. It was It was hard, but it was simple, and sometimes stressful. Camping and being in the hammock immediately rectified that, and it was this little cocoon of peace that we could look forward to every single day. And don't get me wrong, like, we did stay in motels and we did stay in hotel only a handful of times, and when we did that, it was nice because you get to get a proper shower. Fucking electricity is helpful. You get lights. There's no bugs. The bugs were awful. I could make a separate video about the bugs, but the bugs were terrible. But we had a net, so we had some respite from them. But yeah, staying in the hotel was helpful, but it was nowhere near as fulfilling and as fun as camping. Like, fun being kind of the main element. Like, it was far more fun to just finish the day, find some water source, find a few trees that looked like they'd squeeze it in, and just string up a hammock within the space of like 20 minutes and just get in it, and that was home for the night. Like, it's such a freeing experience, especially when you're like stuck in bills and you've got to pay for all this bullshit just to be alive. Being able to just, and obviously there was still expenses that we had to pay for, like we were paying for food and whatnot. Like, it was still an expensive trip, but not having to pay for a roof over our head because we had it on our backs or on our bikes was so freeing. And it was like, if, like, it's probably a reference to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you need food, shelter, warmth, whatever. If it all goes tits up and you have a hammock, you've at least got somewhere to sleep. Like, and you've at least got somewhere to like feel safe for a night. Like, when you see homeless people and they're just out sleeping on cardboard boxes, that's terrible. And obviously they're not going to sit and save up to buy a hammock off Amazon. Like, there's multiple things that you need before you can even do that. And I don't anticipate to be in a position where I need to be homeless and stay in a hammock, but it's almost nice to know that if I needed to, like, the option is there. And that's not really what we had it for, but it was just another symptom of doing it. and another element of awareness that we got from it. But yeah, the exposure to nature, being in nature, that was one of the most underrated. Underrated? Yeah, it's something that we didn't realize how significant it was going to be until we did it. And we realized, like, yes, the striving towards a goal was fun and fulfilling. Yes, posting on social media, sharing what we were doing, that was fun. But like the piece of just being able to string up a hammock, get in it, and just chill out at the end of doing something hard, and just being in nature, listening to the birds, not sitting and scrolling on your phone all the time. Like, it healed me in more ways than I could probably articulate, and I don't quite have the science knowledge to explain what happened, but it did happen. So that's a good one. I would recommend that. And even if you don't cycle across Canada, I would recommend getting a hammock. And even if you just did like a multi-day backpacking trip or something, or one day, or just went fucking camping, like, camping and being out in nature has done so much for my mind and peace that modern day remedies for poor mental health they just can't do, and they just can't heal you in the same way. So I would recommend that. What else? I've got this one's maybe fairly obvious, but also maybe not. But we would essentially, apart from a couple of days where we had rest days, I would say 68 days or maybe 70 days out of 75, we exercised every single day because we were cycling. And we'd both wake up usually pretty groggy, pretty tired. Like, you know, you're sleeping outside, so you're not going to have a perfect night's sleep. We had many really good night's sleep, but, you know, I don't know. I wake up feeling weird every single day. Like, it's my worst part of my day when I wake up. I just feel depressed and as though the world's against me. And then after an hour, I'm like, oh, life's pretty good. But the hammock also helped with that because you have to get out of it quicker than you would get out of bed. Like, and if you wake up in a hammock and you just chill there for a bit, it doesn't feel as bad as bed rotting. And I'm not saying bed rotting's not fine, because it is technically. But what was I going to say? This car behind me's stolen my train of thought. Yeah, we'd wake up feeling pretty groggy, and then we'd put 20 kilometers down or a couple of hours of cycling, and we'd just be in a completely different state of consciousness within an hour or two, and we just felt good immediately. You pretty much get used to feeling, I don't use the word good all day, but just vital, like you're full of vitality because you're constantly pushing blood around your system and you're doing something that's outside and you feel alive. Like, just a quick reference to being depressed. Like, the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's vitality. So that's something that I've had to learn, and sometimes when I'm feeling depressed, what I have to just do, sometimes I just got to rest, but sometimes I need to just get out and do something that makes me feel alive, whether that be go to the gym or go on a run or be outside in the hammock or just be in nature or whatever. Like, it actively repels that feeling of depression when you're doing something like that because you feel vital. Was that all I had to say about exercise? Yeah, and just feeling like an absolutely dangerous weapon because you've been cycling relentlessly, multiple days, you know, relentlessly and consecutively for multiple days. Where normally you do something like this, if you were just on your own home schedule, if you cycled 100 kilometers a weekend, you'd be like, I'm not doing that till at least next weekend, maybe for 2 weeks. But we were doing that every single day, and we could do it every single day, and it felt not just fine, but enjoyable. And we were getting stronger as we went along. So your mind and body are more durable than you think, but you need to like actively expose them to things that are gonna test that and G-check that mentality. So yeah, exercise every day, something I pretty much still do now. I kind of did it anyway, because otherwise I start to lose my mind. I need to train pretty much every day. Don't know if it's an ADHD thing, don't know if it's a personality thing, but I know how much it does for my mind, and I feel more myself when I've done it. Um, so, and that just kind of reinforced that concept and knowledge where it's now, I guess, wisdom that I utilize every day. What else? I don't want to make this too long because I'm concerned that my iPhone's gonna fuck me. No, we're still going. Happy days. Happy days, happy days. Two final things. It activated for the probably the first time in my life, like consistently. I'd like it felt like it flipped a switch in my mind that was like the adventure started. Like your life's an adventure whether you like it or not. Like it just is. You don't know what's going to happen. You can't plan for every detail. There's going to be multiple things that go wrong and go right. You don't know what they're going to be. You have some, obviously, you have some control over it, but you don't have as much as, I guess, what we would sometimes like. And that was like, it was, the bike ride was, it unleashed that feeling because I knew it. Like I know that we're all on this fucking wild adventure where people pretend to know what's going on, and I'm not convinced, to be honest. Like we've got some knowledge, and the knowledge that we have acquired as a human race, I think, is insane. Like, bro, crazy impressive. But there's still so much that I think we don't know, and I didn't really. I guess I don't know. Is it depression? Is it maturity? I don't really know. But it's the first time I'd felt like really, really alive, and that had like awoken a fire within me that I don't think I'd had before, or if I had had it, it was when I was a kid. And there's not really much more I can say about that other than like it activated a sense of adventure within me that hasn't been turned off since. Like I'm now far more dialed into the adventure of life than I was before that. I was kind of just, I really was in the trenches. Like I definitely was depressed, and that means different things to different people, but it just makes it hard to experience life in a way that feels like life. And like I said, the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's vitality. And it's the first time I'd felt really vital, and that like my body and mind had come alive again. And this brings me on to my next point. Like, obviously my girlfriend had seen me before this adventure, and she'd seen what I'd been going through up until this point. And I'd already done a lot of work on myself up until this point. Like the reason, one of the ways that I met her was after I'd done a lot of work on myself and decided to improve, I don't want to say fix, but improve a few aspects of my attitude and mentality around what I wanted for myself and my life. And I wanted to, what's the word? I wanted to, I don't know, make the most of what I've been given. And my gratitude for that has been, it's been a wrestle to keep it and build it in the first place. But I have it, and I know it exists now. But she'd seen me before the bike ride, and then obviously she saw me after. Like she was waiting at the finish line, which was incredible. One of the happiest moments of my entire life, seeing her after that long. Like 2.5 months of not seeing your intimate other is too fucking long. Like a month is long, very long. Like a month is a significant portion of life. And we've since done even more time than that apart, not by kind of choice, but just by visa circumstances and whatnot. But that was the longest we've been apart. And it added a real difficult element because it was already a pretty insane feat to do. And it's nice to have someone cheering you on behind the scenes like that. It was more helpful than it was, far more helpful than it was a burden. But it did add difficult elements to it, and you kind of feel like you live in two lives, I guess. But point being, She saw me straight after, and we spent obviously loads of time together afterwards. And she said she saw a different side to me after, and she said that I was just like more joyful, a bit more silly, a bit more like more of myself. And she said I felt like my presence was more manly. I don't really know how. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but like I don't know how to measure that. Hang on, I might have just pressed this button. No, we're still going. We're still going. Yeah, and I don't really know how to quantify that, but I'm just taking her word for it. And she's just said you just seem different in like the most positive way possible. And that was really nice because I knew I was experiencing growth and, you know, becoming something that I'd never been before. Like that was a consistent feeling, but it doesn't happen overnight. But it can happen over 2.5 months, evidently. And she noticed that difference. And, you know, 2.5 months, it feels like a long time in the moment, but it's actually not that long in retrospect. So I guess that's a message to people that feel stuck, and depression will make you feel stuck, and that nothing's worth pursuing. Everything's always been bad. Nothing's worth pursuing. That's a lie. It's a complete fabrication of reality, and you should fucking ignore that. Even if it's annoyingly present in your mind every single day, you should actively just ride against it as much as you can, because it is a complete lie, and I have physical evidence and mental evidence for that in my life. But yeah, she really noticed a difference in me, and that's like it felt in the beginning like I was like, I'm doing this for me. When we decided we're doing it, like, you know, we're doing this for each other, we're doing it for ourselves. Obviously, we're raising money for charity as well, which is helpful. But like the main premise of why we're doing it is to have an adventure and just get the experience from it. But the most fulfilling parts of the bike ride came afterwards. For me personally, like there was many fulfilling moments during, and like many moments that I will never ever forget. But what it built me into, and the type of person I became, and the skills that I'd built for connection and being able to show up for myself in ways that I'd never been able to do before. And my connection to the world after that. And I'm not saying I haven't had tough moments after that, because I have, but I now have a new skill set, a whole new toolbox, and far more to live for than I ever did before the bike ride. And like I would love to, I'm going to probably make a video about going into a bit more detail of how we actually prepared and the equipment and whatever. But I think the important bit is the why, the what, and the like what it did afterwards. And it was so fucking worth it. And there's many times where I was like, I don't know if this is worth it. Like multiple times where it didn't feel like it was going to come to fruition in the way that we initially hoped, and it did, and far more than that happened. And it doesn't fix everything. Like it doesn't make you fucking infinitely happy. It's not gonna fix every single one of your problems, but it gives you it gave me such a new sense of control and trust in myself and the world around me to help me build the life that I want, that I had value beyond just having a fucking skill set in a system of a job or whatever. Like it's because I spent so long just not feeling valuable as a person, and that's a terrible feeling, and I don't really know if most jobs will ever bring that out of you. And I think it's the time that you spend after the job and in your own time with yourself and with people around you that care about you, that's what builds that self-esteem and that confidence and the ability to show up for yourself, not just because your boss is breathing down your neck or a paycheck is making you do things. You know, like being able to do things for yourself because you want to I think that's how you get the life that you want and the confidence that you're looking for. It certainly was what I was looking for. And like I said, it didn't fix every aspect. I don't want to say fix because there was nothing to fix. Because I don't want to say there was nothing wrong with me, even though sometimes I felt like there was. There was just things that I could improve on, and there was a lot of things right with me. Still is, but it took me a lot of time to see that, and the bike ride was a huge element of that. And you learn far more than I could ever speak about on a video that's an hour long. Like, it's a 2.5 month venture, or whatever yours might be, a month, 2 weeks, a week. Like, it's all helpful. Everything, every little helps. Whatever you have to do to get you to where you need to be. So yeah, I think I'm done, to be honest, because I feel like I'm prone to repeating myself, and I think I've said nowhere near everything, but as much as can be helpful. And selfishly, I just wanted to start making videos. I want to get something out there. I think this is a good place to start, because it was one of the most pivotal points in my journey to not feeling like a worthless shithouse. Because I don't feel like that anymore. I feel good about myself, and that I've got a future worth building, and a life worth protecting, and people around me worth nourishing. And all of that is true, and it'll be true for you too, I'm sure. So yeah, if you made it up until this point, you're a soldier. I appreciate you watching. If you got any questions, let me know in the comments, because I'm sure I've left out huge, enormous anomalies and questions. Don't know if that question made sense, or demand, or whatever that was. I'm terrible at goodbyes, so see ya.